Merhabalar. So I got some books this month. What is it? It's not September. It's October, right? It's Booktober. Yeah. It's October book haul. Not all the books are here. There are some books that are missing. I'll just add them to the next video. But I'm very excited about some of the books I got this month. So in my next video, I'm going to talk about happiness. I'm going to go on a bit of a happiness binge, and I got a bunch of books on happiness. The first one I got was The Art of Happiness, a handbook for living. I know nothing about this book, but I figured if I was going to study the topic of happiness, I should probably get some insights from the Dalai Lama. It's kind of a no-brainer. The next one is Hardwiring Happiness. You'll also see this book in the next video. Basically, I wanted a neuroscience book on happiness, but I didn't want a neuroscience book that was just straight up naturalism, like a more academic sense. So I kind of had to compromise between neuroscience and self-help. Yeah, we'll see how this goes. Now this book, a lot of people didn't like this book, but also a lot of people like this book. So every time I look this book up, people give me mixed reviews, mixed comments. Some people say they don't like Haidt's tone, etc., etc., etc. Let's see, I believe it's like an experimental psychology book, and the purpose of the book is to go over different ancient wisdoms and see how they hold up in the context of science or like experiments. See if the experiments can verify the insights from those wisdoms. So that should be fun to read. This book, so this is Richard Layard. I don't know if Layard, I don't know how you say that. This I was surprised to find. So I basically was just typing the word happiness on Amazon and I found this book. And this is actually an economics book, or it goes over the economics of happiness. For example, do GDP and happiness correlate? When countries get wealthier, do they get happier? He has another book on the ethics of happiness. I might also get that book. I just didn't want to be like greedy and buy too many books. Yeah, I'm excited to read this. We'll see how this goes. Now, another book I got, I believe, The Politics of Experience, Bird of Paradise. Okay, this book I believe is about conformity and the pressures of society and how they shape the individual and how they sculpt you. He wrote another book. Who is this person? R.D. Laing. I got another book by him, and I thought his other book was much cooler. And then I saw he had this book, which was really cheap. It was a really cheap book. And I was like, well, okay, sure, why not? It's basically like one of these old school psychologists, I believe. I believe there's a lot of Freudian stuff in here. I could be wrong. Yeah, this will be exciting to read as well. The Conditions of Love, The Philosophy of Intimacy. This is another area that I'm actually getting into, love and the philosophy of love, because I never went over it before. As I get older, I find exploring these areas in life are a bit more fun, because I have some experience with these things. Yeah, this will be a little fun read as well. Essays in Love. So this is I believe it's a fiction book. So the title is actually a bit misleading. I could be wrong, but like it reads like a fiction book. And the idea here is the author highlights specific problems involving love or romantic relationships through narratives between people. And so it's called Essays in Love, but it's basically just short fiction stories about people who are in love. That's what that is. The Divided Self. This is the guy who has the Birds of Paradise book. Right, this is the book that I wanted to get because it's very interesting. Basically, the premise of this book is that mental health problems, not all of them, but some of them, are caused by a divided self. So there's some element of who you are that is antagonistic or in opposition towards your main self or your secondary self, and that is causing tension or problems in your psyche. That's the idea here. It's a very Jungian or Freud. It's like a mix of Jung and Freud. But basically it's psychoanalysis. It's a psychoanalytic thought. So this should be an interesting book to read. I don't think it's going to be super scientific. I just think it's very interesting. the worldview. Money, power, and traders who barters the Earth's resources. I saw this in a bookstore, and the reason why I got it was because I'm looking at stocks more closely as of late, and in specific more like companies that are dealing directly with the natural resources. So I got this for that reason. I believe it's gonna be a good book. I've heard good things about it. People seem to have, when they saw that I had it, said, "Yeah, that's a really good book. You'll like that." So I actually don't know much about it though. Now, The Revenge of Geography, Robert Kaplan. I feel like this is going to be very similar to Prisoners of Geography and Powers of Geography. I feel like it's going to be extremely similar. But you know what? If he has a different take and a different viewpoint, then I'll read it. This is like a whole field, right? Like a geopolitics, how geography influences politics. So obviously Prisoners of Geography can't cover an entire field of stuff, right? This was my reasoning in the bookstore when I bought it. So we'll see how it goes. I'm sure some of you have read it because it seems to be a very famous thing. The Crisis of Islam, Holy War and Unholy Terror. I believe the actual title of this is like Uses and Misuses of Holy War. We'll see how this goes. I looked it up before I bought it because basically, like, I have this problem where I go to bookstores and the topics aren't serious enough for me. They're a little bit too superficial or like hashed out or so on and so forth. And this seemed like a bit more serious of a topic and doesn't have like the marketing of like a mainstream book. So we'll see how it goes. I did look it up before I bought it and it had good star, like 4-star review. So now The Picture of Dorian Gray is another book I got. Unfortunately, I already have this book. This is a gift that I got from somebody. I already have it, but it's a good book, so maybe I'll give it away. A Brief History of Humankind. I think this book is not so great. I think it's overrated. This is also gifted to me. Unfortunately, I had already consumed it and I had already read it. There's another problem where people buy me books and I already have them. Sitting Kills, Moving Heals, How Simple Everyday Movement Will Prevent Pain, Illness, and Early Death. So basically, I've heard a lot about this book. It's written by a NASA scientist, or a former NASA scientist, and all the studies in this book are basically not how a medical doctor or a physiotherapist would approach it, at least in like an ordinary sense. It's more like in relation to gravity. It's almost how like a physicist would approach health. You could say it's like the physics of health. And a lot of this is based off of what you should do to like actively resist gravity so that your body doesn't break down too early. That's kind of like the main premise of the book. Should be an interesting book. Now, this one, Tiny Changes in Remarkable Results, aka Atomic Habits. I know a lot of the ideas in this book. I have not actually read the book paper cover. I've heard the audiobook, but haven't read this book. To be honest, it's going to be a bit repetitive, and on top of that, the ideas in here aren't all that novel to me. Maybe I'll read it just to say I read the paper version, and like it doesn't hurt to get reinforcements. And to be honest, this book reads super quick. So maybe I'll reread this. But yeah, I got Atomic Habits as a gift. And then the last one is also another book I have. It's really hard to buy books for me, right? This is Turkish Walter Isaacson. This is a Walter Isaacson biography in Turkish. Yeah, maybe I could read this to learn Turkish a little bit better as a reread. So, those are the books I got for Spooktober. There's no spooky books in here. Maybe I'll have to change that before the end of the month. But with that being said, bye-bye.